Welcome everyone to Jerisha's spring program, and this is the second class in the session on the world of doubt with Rabbanit Yael Shimoni. And with that, I'll turn this to Rabbanit Shimoni.
So it's wonderful to see you again. A week has passed and we're getting closer to Purim. And therefore, the ideas that we're dealing with are becoming more stronger in the world right now, because the issue of doubt, as we said, has a lot to do with Purim. But we are putting that aside and continuing because we stopped last week understanding the Rambam's point of view. So I would want to go back, and this I learned from Rabbi Lichtenstein, that every year we begin revising a short revision of what we did, and then we continue. So I'm sharing my screen. So this is really a quick revision of what we've done. We started by learning the Rambam's very interesting statement that he states in his Halakhic book, the Yad HaChazakah. And he writes in a few places, and we read in all these places, that he claims that the Torah doesn't think that a safek is asur. What are we talking about? What are our sfikot that are being dealt here? Situations that I'm not sure if something is kosher or not kosher. I'm not sure if a woman is nida or not nida. I'm not sure about all kinds of things in reality. It's unclear to me if I'm standing in front of an isur. In those situations, the Rambam says, this is not asur. The Torah did not tell us that things that we're doubtful towards are not permitted to be done. Because God understands things and he knows everything. This was the svara, the idea that we said. God knows and we don't. And God, when he gives us the Torah, he understands that we're human. And we don't know the truth about everything. Many times we are in doubt. And Yisurim are not chal. They don't exist in the world of doubt. When something is doubtful, then it's mutter. And this is what the Rambam said. כל הספקות, בין בטומאות, בין במאכלות אסורות, בין באריות, בין בשבתות, אין להם אלא מדברי סופרים. So that's God. But then Chachamim come and they say it's asur. And that's how we know that whenever we have a safek in Isur D'Oraita, we have to be machmir. But that's not because it's written in the Torah. It's because Chachamim came and told us to take a step back. But it's not something that God told us to do. So we saw this repeated in the Rambam in a few times. And we were asking ourselves why. What do we mean by why? Where does the Rambam know this from? Because we said that as far as we're concerned, we never saw the Torah in such a way. Actually, we always felt that whenever we're reaching the Torah's boundaries, we have to take a step back, not because Chachamim told us to do that, but because that's the idea of being a person who's shomer mitzvot. You have to be doubtful, and when you're in doubt, then it's asur. That's what we thought. Suddenly the Rambam comes and turns everything around, repeats this and repeats this. And we wanted to understand, where did the Rambam learn this from? And then the Rambam had a very amazing source, unusual source. Unusual because, again, the Rambam turned everything upside down. What I usually thought about the following source, he suddenly said something totally different. And the source was the heter of a mamzer. And the Rambam said this in a Nigeret, and he writes that when the Gemara states that a mamzer is mutar, lavo bakahal, safek mamzer is mutar, that's where we learn that all the sfekas are actually mutar. Mamzer is the only place that Chachamim did not put a borderline. All the other places Chachamim made a fence. But what the Torah thinks is that safek is mutar, and we learned this from the din of mamzer, and we were very, very surprised, because this was really turning many things upside down. First of all, our view of the Torah. Second of all, our view of this Gemara of mamzerim, that we never thought of taking it as a Gemara that teaches us about the entire world of Torah. We thought that was the exception. That's where things are changed when it comes to mamzerim. But the Torah itself, every safek is asur. That's what we really thought. And then suddenly the Rambam says all these things. Again, I find the Rambam mind-blowing because I feel he's turning my head around. So we repeated this a few times to feel together the strangeness of this new feeling of understanding that Torah is actually much more lenient than what we thought it was. Okay, so this is up till now just the summary of what we've done. So I was wondering first, before we continue, have you thought of this in the coming week? Because I found you, I used to play the piano for 14 years till I gave birth, and then my children never allowed me to play the piano. When I come to the piano, they don't let me play. I hope in a few years I can go back. But when I was playing the piano, I always felt that even if I did not practice, after a week, I had new understandings about the piece. So we did not practice for a whole week. But I'm wondering, have you thought about this Rambam, about this view of this idea that the Torah is actually very lenient and only Chachamim come and build defenses, but that God himself is saying, when you're in doubt, everything is okay. When you're in doubt, you can calm down. As far as I'm concerned, everything is fine, because I'm not expecting you to understand that you have to be aware of anything, because you're doubtful and you're human. That's okay. So have you thought about this? When I say thought, I don't only mean thinking, also emotions, right? Or new insights. It doesn't have to be something very lumdish, right? It's more about what does this mean in the philosophical level or the existential level to you.
Oh,
I'm
sorry, go
saying
ahead.
when I learn something like this, okay, and I'm surprised, so then I take my time to think, how did the Rambam change my view of the world? Did this Rambam actually change something in my thoughts or in my feelings or in my insights?
I think Leora is ready to answer, right, Leora?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I just a thought. Very often in my life, an authority figure will tell me something, and I have a doubt about it. So this has happened to me since I was a child, and they told me that milk was good for me. So that's what I'm going to say.
You know, you say something very interesting, because when the Rambam says this, it suddenly gives a lot of room for our doubts, because we understand that this is normal, and that's what being human is about, and that God understands that. And suddenly we feel much more comfortable, and when we doubt, because it's legitimate. Chachamim say, you know, it's dangerous, but it's legitimate. We're not so afraid of our doubts anymore, I think. What you said, this has reoccurred to me since I'm a child. Wonderful. You're human. You're not God. Ah, big surprise. So let's enjoy our humanity. For once, at least.
I also wanted to say, for me, I think, for example, like learning Torah, that you do it like every year, you're doing over, and it's the doubts will come and go depending on, I don't know, age and stage and what you're thinking at that time. And I think for me, sometimes around learning, the doubt changes from time to time. Like sometimes it's stronger than others. I think it's also a level of maturity, because maybe, you know, what I thought at 25 is not what I'm thinking, you know, late 30, whatever. I just think that also plays into that, how doubtful you are or something, or not.
Oh, you're saying
Around
something
particular issues when it comes on to learning.
Yeah. Okay, so Camila, you're saying something very interesting that we will deal with, I think, today. When we're in doubt, some doubts can be solved. And sometimes the way they can be solved is by learning or doing other things to work with ourselves. Because as you said, sometimes a person is doubtful because they are a doubtful person. It's also, there's a doubtful age, right? There's an age that anything you say will be held against you as a doubtful thing. Nothing you will say it will be true in the eyes of teenagers usually, but not only. And it can also happen to us after certain points in life, that something happened will cause this tremor inside us. And then we can move from being in doubt to suddenly understanding that we're not in doubt anymore. And this movement between doubt and assurance is a very interesting thing. a very important thing that we will deal with, because what I said up till now is that the Rambam tells us to relax about our doubts. But I think what we feel in our life is that we don't like to be in doubt. We feel uncomfortable, and we are looking to be assured. So even if the Rambam tells us everything is okay, we don't feel that inside us. And when we hear that Chachamim said, we think it's not okay. So again, that calls us to rethink. Okay, if God said it's okay, and then Chachamim say it's not, so what's happening here? So we will try to touch on this issue today also. But before we continue, I want to look at the big choilek on the Rambam, because the Rambam is a very big Rishon, but the Rashba thought that the Rambam was totally wrong. And he attacks him. He has 3 different kushiyot on the Rambam, and he states a very different claim. So first I want us to see the Rashba, and here we're entering the world of doubt, because whenever we learn Gemara, there will always be a machloket somewhere. And there's the Rambam and the Rashba, and who's right? We know Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim, right? So let's see what the Rashba has to say. First, what he claims, and then if we can understand the svara and the idea behind it. But before I continue, does anybody else have something to say or thoughts before we move to the next text?
I just want to say, I was thinking about the class a lot during the week. I think we didn't define what's the Oraita and what's the Rabbanan. And to jump into it without defining them, for me, it's very
okay, so
confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll give a definition. It's a wide definition. The Oraita doesn't mean something that's written in the Torah necessarily. The Oraita also means things that Chachamim tell us were told to Moshe in Sinai. What the Gemara and Chulin claims is that when God gave the Torah, he did not give one Torah, he gave 2 Torah. He gave Torah shebichtav and Torah shebe'al peh. He gave us written, and he also taught. What was Moshe doing for 40 days, not sleeping and not drinking? He was learning from God, and he wasn't writing, because he came out with very small pieces of writing, and the writing was done by God. So he was learning, and all of that information is Torah shebe'al peh that was given already to Moshe. And Halakha Moshe Sinai is also D'oraisa, and he gave him also all kinds of ways to learn the Torah, which are also D'oraisa. The Rabbanan, we know we're in the Rabbanan when Chachamim say this is not written in the Torah and it's not Halakha Moshe Sinai, but we decided to invent something or to create a borderline. These are 2 very big things that Chachamim do. For example, they invented the idea that we need to say a bracha on a mitzvah. They invented the idea that we need to say a bracha on food. All that is creations by Chachamim. And they created the entire Chag that we're going to be approaching. Purim is something that Chachamim have created. And they've created many, many things. So that's Chachamim when they create a mitzvah. And also Chachamim have also drawn borderlines around mitzvot of D'oraisa. For example, from D'oraita, it's asur to do a lot of things on Shabbos. Chachamim said, I can't also pick up my cell phone on Shabbos, or I can't pick up a hammer on Shabbos. Why? I can't move it, because it's kli shemelachto le'isur. If I use the cell phone, I might use it for isur. That's not written in the Torah. The Torah said, don't do what's asur. And Chachamim say, we're taking a step back to protect you. Sometimes there are machlokot about what's the right and what's the Rabbanan. There's an example that I will use in the shiur, so I'll bring it up now. Very well-known machlokes between the Rambam and the Ramban is whether or not Isur Negia is the Raisa or the Rabbanan. Isur Negia means that you're not allowed, a man and a woman cannot touch if they're not married and she's a Tameh, Nida, they're not allowed to touch. Not only are they not allowed to have sex, they're not allowed to touch. Why? Rambam says, it's written in the Torah. The Torah says, lo tikrav. Ramban says, no, that's not written in the Torah. That's Stam Adrasha. Chachamim said, why did they say not to? Because it's a borderline not to reach intercourse. So that's, for example, an example of a machloket if something is deraisa or derabbanan. So thank you for the questions, because it's very, very important. When we learn Gemara, a lot of times we are dealing with machlokot regarding the question, is this deraisa or derabbanan?
Thank you. Toda.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts before we continue? Really ask anything you want to. That was a very important question. So thank you.
I just want to comment. I think in my childhood, I don't think I was taught Rabbanan in that way.
How were you taught?
I'm trying to remember, but I'm thinking that I was taught that it all existed, that it wasn't an idea, but it existed, like the oral law existed when Matan Torah came, so that but it was that it wasn't written down until later.
No. So okay, what you're saying is another issue. Okay. There's a very interesting statement saying that every word that a Talmud is saying is actually was written in Har Sinai. That's an Agada. An Agada, it means.
I apologize. That was me. I was trying to mute the background noise. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It means that it doesn't have a halakhic implication. So we are claiming that even this year was already written there in Sinai. But what I'm saying now is not a mitzvah, and it's not the right, it's not the rabbanan. So why? Who empowered the chachamim to invent or to create these laws? So this is another very interesting. We can do a whole. This question you asked, it can be a series of shiurim. So this is a very interesting point. I'll just go for that, and then we'll put it aside because everything is so interesting. But we have to focus on. Yeah, I have a student here that learns in yeshiva, and this happens to us a lot in shiur. I don't know. How do we know that we need to listen to the chachamim? It's written in the Torah. God says. In Sefer Dvarim, lo tasur, in adavar asher yorucha yamin u'shmol, lo tasur. So according to that, everything that Chachamim say is actually a mitzvah from the Oraita, right? Because the Torah said you have to listen to them. So everything they say becomes a mitzvah of the Oraita. So how can it be that we have the Rabbanan and we have the Oraisa? So that's a very good question. And there are many different answers for that, because halachically speaking, there is a difference, and this is the difference. The difference is what we're learning. That Sfeika D'Oraita is l'chumra and Sfeika D'Rabbanan is l'kula. And there are other, and also our regard towards it and where is it coming from. But there are all kinds of different levels also. In the D'Oraita itself, there are different levels of D'Oraisa in the Rabbanan, many different things. So what you quoted is this statement that everything we're saying is connected to Har Sinai. But still, we have two very different corpuses of mitzvot, the Oraita and the Rabbanan. Okay, so you're giving me an idea for another set of shiurim, so I thank you. So let's now go and learn the Rashba. Okay, the Rashba, who is a few generations after the Rambam, he's a Talmud of the Ramban, and he is a very important Rishon, a very big Rishon, and he allows himself to be cholek on the Rambam in a very severe way. Okay, so the Rashba says this. The Rashba on Kiddushin, he looks at the Rambam, right? The Rambam said, here, from this Gemara, we learn that all the Sfeikas are mutar. So says the Rashba. First, he's doing something very important that we always need to learn from the Rishonim. First, he quotes the Rambam, and then he will be choilek. So this is what Ben Hillel taught us. First, you say the other view, and then you go against it. So says the Rashba, מכאן דקדק הרמב"ם ז"ל בתשובת שאלה. דכי אמרינן בעלמא ספקא דאורייתא לחומרא דרבנן היא. דאם מדאורייתא לא אסרה התורה אלא הוודאי, וכן פסק בחיבורו הגדול. So first he quotes the Rambam. And again, we know we understood the Rambam correctly. From the Torah, only what's Vadai is Asur. Chachamim said also the suffix is Asur. But the Torah, only Vadai is Asur. Says the Rashba, V'kashya li tuva. I have many questions on this. 1, 2, 3 questions. I'm not reading the questions right now. I'm jumping to his view, which is in blue here. Ela hacha amrina. This is what I think, says the Rashba. ממזר ספק יבוא מאיתורא דקהל עתי, ואדרבה, דוק מינה דאמא דגלי קראה, הלא גלי, אפילו ספק ממזר בלא יבוא, וממנה לכל איסורי ספק דאורייתא, וכן פירש רש"י ז"ל, בעיקר, וכבר הערכתי בזה בספר תורת הבית בשער התערובות. Says the Rashba, the Gemara on mamzer is actually against the Rambam. Because here the Gemara says, how do we know that a safek can be part of the kahal? Because there's a special pasuk. Because there's a pasuk that says, mamzer lo yavo. So that's how we know, because of the pasuk, that a safek is mutar. The rest of the Torah, safek is asur. That's why the Torah had to write a special pasuk. You can't take the exception and make it into the rule and the law. So that's what the Rashba says. What is standing behind the Rashba? I think a very different view of the Torah, and I think it's a view that we are used to share and think. The Rashba says, usually, if you're safek about Torah, you have to take a step back, not because Chachamim told you. God said that something is asur. You're not sure. What are you supposed to do? Oh, let's try it out. Does that make sense to you? If I'm saying to my kid, you should know that don't stick your hand into the electric, because sometimes somebody will turn up. You don't know. So don't put your hand in. So he'll try it out? That doesn't make any sense. If God said that if I'm eating chelev, I have to be chayav karet. Now I'm not sure if it's chalev. I should try it out. I think automatically we know that when something is dangerous or if something is very, very crucial, we don't play around with it. When I asked you in the beginning of class, what will make you take a step back? You said, sometimes I will take a step back because I'm afraid I will hurt somebody, or it's very, very important to me. If something is very important or if something is hurting someone else, I will take a step back, and that is what you're supposed to do. That's a normal thing to do. To come and say, try it out, does not make sense. Torah is supposed to make sense. It's a very natural way to read the Torah and to understand the Torah. If Torah is what God said, and everything that God said is important, obviously, we ourselves have to take a step back when we're unsure. So the Rashba makes a lot of sense, I think. I don't know, what do you think? After the Rambam, now going back to the Rashba, so this is flipping, this is what we do a lot when we learn. It really feels like exercise. We spoke a lot about the Rambam, and now I'm putting the Rashba in. So what do you think? Can you identify with the Rashba now, or did the Rambam already cloud your thinking and you're there? Where are you now that we see them one against the other? You know what? Before you answer, let's read the questions that the Rashba has against the Rambam. Okay, and that will help us think who's right. Again, elu velu divrei Elokim chayim, but what is the Rashba saying? Okay, so he had 3 questions. We will deal deeply with the first question, so I'm reading it through. Kasha lituva, says the Rashba. De'im ken azal lei asham talui. Leman delo bae chaticha mishte chatichot. אפילו למאן דבאי חתיכה משתי חתיכות, הנאמינה לעניין קורבן, אבל להתיר לכתחילה לא כאמר, והנח תנאי לאו בהכי פליגי. Says the Rashba, if the Rambam is right, I do not understand the korban of Asham Talui. Asham Talui is a korban written in the Torah that if I'm not sure if I ate something which is asur, I need to bring a korban. Says the Rashba, if the Rambam is right, I don't understand. This korban was not supposed to be written. The Torah itself is against the Rambam, says the Rashba. So this is his proof against him. And today I want us to learn the proof more. But before we go into that, I'm asking you, are you familiar with this korban? We're not bringing korbanot today, so we're not very strong in Vaikra. So I don't know if the Rashba's question was so strong for you. Have you learned before about this korban called Asham Talui? Just a little bit. Okay, so this is a very, very fascinating korban, and this is what we're going to learn about today. So I just want to go through again to have this map, because this map has to be, when I learn, I want to do a few things. I want to think, I want to feel, but I also want to know Torah. So at least one thing from this year, you will always remember Be'ezrat Hashem, or we'll try. It never works. I always forget what I learned. But let's pretend. Okay, it's Purim. We can pretend. You will always remember there's a machloket between Rambam and Rashba. Rambam says, Sveka deoraita mideoraita lechumra is a de Rabbanan, and the Rashba says Sveka deoraita mideoraita lechumra. So I made a map for you. So maybe when we look at it, we'll remember.
The Rashba has no doubt. There's no doubt in what he said. I mean, the case of the Rambam had a doubt. There was a mamzer who we were not sure if he is or he's not.
Mm-hmm.
The Rashba disregards the safek.
Either
you are mamzer or you're not.
No, the Rashba has to agree that a mamzer who's safek can marry into Israel, because it's written in the Gemara.
So
what
this
the
is
Rashba
not the
says,
safek? Mm-hmm.
No, but the Rashba says this is an exception in the law. The mamzer is an exception. All the rest of the Torah, the safek is asur. The mamzer, he's a very special case. Why? Because mamzerim is horrible. Because God wants to help mamzerim. Because he didn't do anything wrong. So we're being lenient with him.
Mm-hmm.
God Himself is being lenient, but you can't learn from the mamzer to the rest of the Torah. The mamzer is the big exception, says the Rashi, and it makes perfect sense. That's what we always thought. The mamzerim are special, right? Mamzerim are a very hard law, and we know that Chachamim really do the best they can, and they've done very, very well in erasing mamzeru from existence. And they started doing it with this Gemara. So this is an exceptional Gemara, says the Rashba. The Rambam says, this Gemara, this is the Torah, the whole Torah. So they're reading the Sugya in very different ways.
They're very different. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the Rambam is saying this law, Sveka Doraita Lechuma, is Din de Rabbanan. The Rashba says, Sveka Doraita Lechuma is a Din de Raisa. So you can try to repeat it again. Sveka Doraita Miderabanan Lechuma, that's the Rambam. Sveka Doraita Midoraita Lechuma, that's the Rashba. So if you're going to hear Bechorei Yeshiva say these words, you'll know this is who they're talking about. Rambam against Rashba. Okay. So these are associations I had, but I'll put them aside because I want to start learning about Asham Talui, because what we've realized here is that the Rambam and the Rashba have a few machlokot. We talked about how to read the Mamzerim, and now I want us to look at Asham Talui, because Asham Talui is actually the korban that deals with the world of doubt. And it's a very interesting korban. So I want us to learn it, and then we'll go back to the Rambam and the Rashba and try to understand who thinks what about this korban. I just want to ask a quick question. How many of you had time to look at the handout? No time. Good, wonderful. So we're learning this together. Okay. This is again a repeating of what we've learned already, but now I want to move back to the korban. So I'm reading from Vaikra. Vaikra says this: V'im nefesh ki techta, ve'asta achat mikol mitzvot Hashem אשר לא תעשנה, ולא ידע ואשם ונשא עוונו. What's the situation? A person has done an avera and he doesn't know, ולא ידע. והביא איל תמים מן הצאן בערכך לאשם אל הכהן, וכיפר עליו הכהן על שגיגתו אשר שגג, והוא לא ידע ונסלח לו, אשם הוא, אשם השם. Hashem. Okay? So this is very interesting. Pasuk Yud Zayin is telling us there is a situation that a person is unsure if he made an Aveira. And in that situation, he's bringing a korban. Wow, this is very much against the Rambam, because the Torah here is talking about a person who is not sure if he made an Aveira. This is a Safek Aveira, right? And you have to bring a korban. So it seems it's asur from the Torah. Do you agree with me? When we read this, the pshat of the Torah means that God is saying Safek is asur. If you're not sure if you've done the Avera, you have to bring a korban, and it has a very hard name. Korban Asham, guilt. Oh, Jews and guilt. Wow, we can talk about this a lot. So we're feeling guilty when we're in doubt. We're in doubt and we try and we did it and we maybe, I don't know, maybe I did an Avera, maybe not, maybe I didn't Avera, maybe not. Oh, you have to bring a korban. That's what's written here. Rashi helps us understand this even further. He always helps us out. So Rashi says, what are we talking about? So first of all, Rashi tells us, he calms me down. He says, Yael, breathing. Not every safek you have, you're going to have to be a korban. There are many mitzvot. Many times you're not sure if you're okay. No, you don't have to go crazy. If you've done something that might be correct, then you have to bring a korban. נכון, העניין הזה מדבר מי שבא ספק כרת לידו, ולא ידע אם עבר עליו עם לאו, כגון חלב ושומן לפניו, וכסבור ששניהם היתר, ואכל את האחת. אמרו לו, אחת של חלב הייתה, ולא ידע איזו של חלב, אם זו של חלב אכל, הרי זה מביא אשם תלוי, ומגן עליו כל זמן שלא נודע לו שוודאי חטא, ואם נודע לו לאחר זמן, יביא חטאת. So Rashi is giving us an example of a very weird situation. Okay, so I want us to imagine the situation. I don't know how many of you are familiar with chelev and shuman, so I'll just go over these two words and what they mean. We have all kinds of animals that we are allowed to eat. But three kinds of animals are animals that are also animals that we can bring as a korban. Shor, keves, ve'ez. Izim, kvasim, ve'shvarim, para ve'shor, keves, ve'ayil, ez ve'iza, they can become a korban. These animals, if we take their, how do you say shuman in English? Help me.
Fat.
Fat.
Oh,
Okay.
fat.
Patty?
Their fat is asur in isur karet. Why? So I'm just giving you a reason to think about it. It's a whole sugya. It's one of the understandings. Because if I would be giving this animal as a korban, the fat would have to go on the mizbeach. The blood and the fat are two things that we don't eat. They are always burnt. Okay. So these things belong to God. We are not allowed to eat them. So it means that the fat of these animals is asur in a very, very high isur. It's isur karet, because if you eat it, it's as if you've taken part of the mizbeach things. Even now, today, we don't have korbanot. Still, this is the isur chelev. This thing is called chelev. Now, other animals that we're allowed to eat, tzvi, ayal, animals that we're not allowed to bring them as korbanot, their fat is mutter, and you can eat it, and you can cook with it, and you can make schmaltz with it, and you can have a wonderful time with it, and it's great. They look very much the same. This is fat and this is fat. You have two pieces of fat, but one of them is chelev and the other is shuman. So says Rashi, if Yael, if you came to a restaurant, or if you, I don't know, came to a person's house, and there were two pieces, and you knew that one of them is chalev, but you weren't sure which one, and then you ate one, and you don't know. You keep walking around with this doubt. Did I eat the other part? Then you need to bring a korban asham. Okay, so that's what Rashi explained. This is a very interesting doubt. Do you understand the situation? I know that in front of me there was an issue. I'm just not sure. And I have no easy way to find out. Did I eat the wrong piece? It reminds me of Alice in Wonderland. Okay, she doesn't know. Or the road not taken. Okay, how should I know which way to go? You don't. But you've done a deed. You've eaten something, and now you don't know. Maybe I ate something that is really, really usher, not a little bit usher. And we're not talking about basar bechalav. We're not talking about nevela. We're talking about the highest isur. And you don't know. Maybe I did it. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I ate something which is wonderful. Maybe I've eaten chalev. So Rashi says, I'm going back to Rashi. He says, and then Rashi states this, ומגן עליו כל זמן שלא נודע לו שוודאי חטא. When I'm bringing this korban, it's like I have a shield. I have a shield that is shielding me until I find out if I really made the deed. But what happens when I find out? Okay, and now again, how do I find out? There are all kinds of ways to find out something. I can ask people, who knows? Maybe you know the piece on the right, the piece on the left. Maybe I can bring it to a special lab and have them check it out. Maybe they can find out if it belongs to one of these three animals or to another animal. I can work very hard and find out. Once I find out, again, I have to bring a korban. And this is what happens. What happens after I find out? ואם נפש אחת תחטא בשגגה מעם הארץ ועשותה אחת ממצוות השם אשר לא תעשנה והשם, או הודה עליו חטאתו אשר חטא. I didn't know and now I know. והביא קורבנו שעירת עזים תמימה נקבה על חטאתו אשר חטא. ואם כבש יביא קורבנו לחטאת נקבה תמימה יביאנה. So this is, we're learning Tanakh now. I don't know if you came to Shir and Gemara, I'm teaching you Tanakh, but it's all the same. This is a very, very interesting passages in the Tanakh. Sefer Vayikra says, when you don't know, you have to bring an ayu. When you do know, you have to bring a kevis. So I didn't know if I ate something wrong. Once I found out, I can also be mechaper on my avera. I can bring a korban, and it ends up that I brought two korbanot. One when I didn't know, and the second one after I found out. And Rashi explained, why do I need these two korbanot? Because what's happening to me? Something happened. I chose the wrong road. Oh, I chose the road. I don't know if it's wrong. I'm going berserk. I'm bouncing off the wall, so I'm bringing one korban. After a while, two things might happen. I might discover I was fine, or I might discover I actually did the deed. If I did do the deed, I'll have to bring another one. So what's happening here? These two stages. I'm leaving this question, don't answer it yet, because we need more information. Obviously, I don't know, we're approaching Vayikra. I really hope that when we get to Vayikra and you will read this, when you listen to this in the learning of the Torah, then you will remember some of this hearing. It's really interesting. We always read these and we just go by them, but there is something very, very interesting happening in this Korban. So let's get more information. And as Jews, we'll get the information through questions. There is one big question that many Mefarshim have asked about this. We said that you're bringing two korbanot, one after the other, but there's something very weird. When I'm unsure if I made this Aveira, I'm bringing a very expensive korban. So we really have to understand money and how much things cost in order to understand the Torah well. So just know that the korban, when you bring an ayil, is very expensive. It costs 48 maneh. And if you're bringing, that's the asham talui. And when I'm bringing a chatat, it's only one maneh. So it's 48 times more of an expense to bring the korban when I'm not sure if I made the avera. And then it's a much smaller korban, still expensive, but much less after I know that I actually did the deed. So this is very strange, right? Because we have one strange upon the other. A, why do I have these two korbanot? B, why is the korban when I'm not sure so much more expensive than the korban when I am sure? Is the question clear? Do you understand? Any answers? Okay, so here's my rule. Wait, let's wait 10 seconds. Okay. Just play with this. Okay, this puzzle. This is a puzzle. Here, I'm drinking my tea, so the 10 seconds we can take a deep breath and think calm.
One thing that occurs to me is
Wait, 10 seconds. Hold on.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No. I like to take my time when I'm thinking. Okay. Wait, before you speak, I just want to see how many women here have ideas. So just so we can work with the time. Enid is first. Okay, 2. Okay, so we have time. Good. So what did you think?
Enid, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure you should waste time. I don't know that I quite understand it, but it seems to me if you have a doubt and you go ahead and eat something anyway, why did you do that? If you're at a table and someone is offering you food and you don't know if it's really kosher, that seems a lot more serious than if you just did it and had no clue before you did it. I don't know, that might not be relevant.
It's very relevant. You said something that will reach in the end of this year, and I don't know if today, you said Svara. I don't know if you know who the Shari Yosher is, but a very big achron that tells the rabbi said what you said. Okay? It's a great idea. But I think you even said it better than the way it's written in the text I brought. So wait, repeat this and let's try to say it. Okay, again.
I should say it again.
Yeah, because you had a very nice. The words you used were great. So
if I remember. So basically, if you have a doubt, why did you eat it? If you're faced with something you don't know about, then don't do anything till you know. But if you had no idea whatsoever, you did the Vera, but you really didn't know at all, nothing, no alarm bells, then that's not as bad. It's more like if you didn't know, you've made a decision without knowledge. I don't know.
Okay, so halfway. There's one thing I need to add. The second court, if you really didn't know and you had no way of knowing, you're patur. That's the idea of honest. Honest Rahmana Patre. If I can't know what I'm eating, that's fine. The problem here is that, as you said, why are you eating something that you can find out the truth about? The fact that you have decided to eat something that you can just check more, and you decided not to check and go ahead, that's a huge issue. So I'm asking, why is that such a huge problem? Okay, so I didn't feel like somebody said maybe. Why is that so bad? When you said it, you said that that's a huge problem. Why?
You're making a choice to maybe do the wrong thing when you know you don't have to do the wrong thing. I mean, you're making a choice to take a chance with something that is serious, which is the kashrut law, for example.
But why is that so bad? Why is it so expensive? Why is that korban so
because
expensive?
you should think before you do something. To teach you to think before you do and get the information if you can, to be careful.
Okay, so you're saying it's more important to learn. It's a more serious problem if somebody is acting without thinking. For Jews to act without thinking, that's the worst. That's much more expensive than making a mistake. People make mistakes. But if you made mistakes because you didn't think, okay, pay 48 money.
You have kavana also. In other words, yeah, I don't know what this is, but what the heck, I want to eat it anyway. That seems to me to be much more in need of education than I really thought this was all totally kosher and I just ate and now I found out it wasn't. That's a whole, you're not involved in anything there. You just got taken advantage of or whatever. But if you are going to be sloppy with how you're approaching kashrut, for example, and you're going to say, oh, I wonder if this is really kosher. Well, too bad. I'll just eat it now and what the heck. I think that requires more education.
So you're saying this is education. So now I'm asking another question. Wait, before, I love the way you put this. This is great.
Oh,
I'm holding myself because there were other ideas here, because there are other options. So any other ideas?
no.
Chaya, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah.
Chaya.
Thank you. I was just going to say that maybe it's like trying to make you take it more seriously, because if you know that you did something wrong, then you're more likely to feel bad about it and do teshuva or whatever. And if you're not sure, you might not take it seriously, and therefore you have to bring a really serious korban to like drive home the seriousness of the situation.
Oh, wonderful. You have said almost word by word the Ramban on the Torah, what you said. I don't know, there's Ruach HaKodesh in this class. This is Ramban, this is Shari Osher. Okay, wait. Again, so you're not going, this is also education, but different kind of education. Okay, these are different problems that the student in the classes, we are the student in the class of God. He gives a lot of homework. We don't do the homework, we get them again. The question is, what's the problem? What's the homework? So, so the problem is, you're not thinking. Being a Jew, being committed means you have to think. And deciding not to think can be problematic in two ways. A, you're not using your mind. B, maybe you're actually being
Disrespectful.
Respectful. When you show that you're not thinking, that's worse than anything else. So that's what you said. But you're saying something different. The issue here is a different problem. What's the problem? Because we have tshuva, right? Tshuva is something that the Jews believe in, but tshuva has to be serious. And when somebody is not sure if he did something wrong, it's very hard to do tshuva.
And not only for the individual doing teshuva, but also like other people. If you have those 2 pieces of fat in front of you, you might be like, oh, not a big deal. But then when your neighbor says, oh, it's a big deal, I messed that up and I had to bring the super expensive korban. Like it's not only for the individual, it's for like public policy. That's what I meant. And the sorry to interrupt you.
So I need to explain the public policy again. I didn't get it. Again.
I was saying that you're making a statement to like everybody, not only a person who actually messed up, but by putting that kind of price on that action, you're making a statement to like the entire community that you take that really seriously, and it might even be a deterrent. It will make somebody take it seriously before the fact.
Mm-hmm. So I think what you're saying is you're going back to Nade's idea, and you're saying, so you said 2 ideas together in one, right? One is the person.
I thought of it as more or less one idea, but
okay. Okay, great. So I want to read it. I want to read the things we at least the Ramban. We'll start with the Ramban, okay, and to see his answer, and then I want to see Rabbeinu Yonah, because they're talking about tshuva, about kapara, and there were more on the way of what Chaya said in the beginning. So, okay, so this is a question. This is Ramban. So Ramban says this. וטעם השם תלוי. Why are we bringing this? מפני שבעליו סבור שאין עליו עונש, כי לא נודע שחטא. מפני זה החמיר עליו הכתוב בספקו יותר מוודאו, והצריכו איל בכסף שקלים, ואילו נודע חטאו היה מביא חטאת בת דמקה, וקראו אשם, guilt, לאמור שהוא בשני סלעים כהאשמות החמורות, לרמוז לו, שאם יהיה נקל בעיניו ולא יביא כפרתו, שמם יהיה בעוונו. וזה טעם אשם, הוא אשום, אשם להשם. יאמר כי הקורבן הזה אף על פי שהוא בעל הספק, אשם הוא. כי אשום אשם להשם היודע כל תעלומות, ואם אולי חטא לו, יענישנו. וכן מה שאמר למעלה, והביא את אשמו בעבור כי מן הנזכרים מזידים, כגון שבועת העדות, יזכיר בו אשם והוא חטאת. Okay, so the Ramban says, listen also not only to the amount of money you're bringing, also to the words that the Torah is using. The Torah is calling this Asham. And when you know that you've done an Isur, you bring Chatat. And why is Asham stronger? Because people think they're okay. People, when they have doubt and they do something wrong, they think they're okay. And what the Torah is telling us is that this is very, very problematic. This is the worst. Why? Because maybe you don't know, but God knows. And the fact that God knows, maybe you did something very wrong. So you really need to feel very, very bad about this. So in case you're not, bring a very fat korban. So that's what the Ramban says. Let's see, Rabbeinu Yonah, he says another statement, which I really like, because I like the way he's describing people. I just want to share this with you. What the Rishonim says. He's also talking here about Asham Talui. He's talking about the fact that we need to begin Shabbos earlier and we need to take Shabbos out later. Why? Because the beginning and the end of the day are times of safek, and we don't know. And that's why we have to have boundaries there, and it's Sveka Doraisa L'Chumra. So when he's talking about this in Masechet Brachot, he also talks about Asham Talui. And then he says, והטעם בזה, למה החמירו על הספק יותר מן הוודאי? אומר מורי הרב, שהוא מפני שעל הוודאי משים האדם החטא על ליבו ודואג ומתחרט עליו וחוזר בתשובה שלמה. אבל על הספק עושה סברות. ואומר, אותה חתיכה שאכלתי אולי הייתה מותרת, ולא ישית את ליבו לזה, ולזה החמירו בו יותר. Rabbeinu Yonah says, people have svaros. You're learning with Yael, she's teaching you to think. When you think all kinds of things. So when you're not sure, you'll start thinking and you say, maybe I'm okay, maybe I'm okay. That's a huge problem. This thought of leniency, that's a huge, huge problem. So that's why you have to bring a very, very fat korban. Okay, so we really learned just the beginning, but now I'm asking you the question. Learning this, who's right? Rambam or Rashba? Remember, Rambam said, Safek is mutar from the Oraita. The only Chachamim. Rashba said, what? Safek is asher mid'oraita. Asham talui. So who do you think is right? Rambam or Rashba? Who wins at this round?
Sorry. Do you mind summarizing, just like you just did, like one sentence of each of them for the two positions again?
I was just about to say the same thing, yeah.
I'm going back because this is what we're repeating again and again. Rambam said, God never said anywhere that if you're in doubt, it's asur. When you're in doubt, it's mutar. How do I know? Mamzeri mar mutar, safek, said the Rambam. Rashba said, what? Safek d'oraita, asur. From the Torah, it's asur. Of course, God says to you, safek is asur. Safek is asur. And now we learned about Asham Talui. I'm asking you who's right, Rambam or Rashba, according to what we learned up till now.
Oh, according to what we learned. So it's not really our opinion.
No, we now learned Asham Talui. We read Psukim, we read Ramban, we read Rabbeinu Yonah. You had ideas. From all of this, who do you think is right? According to the Torah? We're asking, what does God say? We're just read Psukim. God spoke in Sefer Vayikra. What does God think about doubt?
I have a technical question. Is it doubt that you've acted on or just doubt that you have?
This is doubt I've acted on. I had 2 pieces of food and I decided to act. I took a chance. Rambam said in the Torah, it's mutar. Yeah.
I think the second one, the Asham Talui, is the one from reading the Torah in Hebrew. I agree with the second one with Rashba. Is that the second one?
Yeah. I agree with. I think after what we've read, the Rambam, I don't understand him.
Yeah, same.
Rashba wins big time. I don't know.
Right.
That's what it looks like, at least at this round.
I also
and
agree with
you-
him more. Yeah.
And you gave, before we had a problem understanding Rashba, but you gave such interesting insights. You said, if somebody is acting upon a doubt, if somebody will take the road the Rambam is saying is okay, he is doing a huge transgression. It's a huge transgression because he's not thinking, he's not listening, he's showing us that he doesn't care, and that's a worse chet than actually doing the deed. It's much worse when you're not sure and you're doing it than if you're actually doing it.
Well, it's almost
But
like
the Ram-
not. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The Rambam doesn't say that you're allowed to do in doubt. That he doesn't say that. You say mutar. No, safek is not mutar. Safek is something that you should avoid. The Rambam doesn't say that you should go and act when you're safek.
You're
He
saying
said
something
you will
very
not be
interesting.
punished. You will not be punished.
Okay.
And
Let
that
me-
goes perfectly with the Rambam, yes.
But Ori,
The
you're
fact
saying
you're
something
not
very
punished.
interesting. You're saying something very interesting. You're saying the Rambam didn't say that you should do it.
Right.
He just said that it's mutter.
It's not
Uh-huh.
mutar. It's not an
The
avera.
Rambam
It's not
said
mutar.
mutar. He said
Uh-huh.
mutar. You want to
Mhm,
go back? He said we can look at his. He said kol hasfekot mutarim. But you're saying, Ronit, even when the Rambam said mutar, he never said do it.
Right.
But again, I'm asking, when we're reading the psukim, the Torah here says that if you've done it, you have to bring a very expensive korban. Does that work? Saying mutar, but I'm not saying
In
don't
the
do it.
eyes. Mhm.
And if you did it, bring a huge korban. There is something tricky here, right?
Mhm.
You say it's mutar, don't do it. And if you do it, you're going in a very interesting lane, and we'll see that some have tried to walk that path. But what I'm trying to show you at this point, this path seems to be very, very problematic. Because if there wasn't a korban, or if the korban was not so expensive, I would say, okay, it's interesting. But this is not only do you have to bring a korban, you have to bring a very, very, very expensive korban that you call it asham, guilt. So, oh, it's fine, don't do it. And if you do it, you're super guilty. It's a little hard.
What does the Rambam say about that? About the Asham? What does he say about Asham Talui? The right.
So I could go back and read to you what we've seen, and that's how we'll finish this lesson. I'm reading again the text. Now you know that the text that we've learned before, how surprising it is. אבל כל הספקות, בין בטומאות, בין במאכלות אסורות, בין בעריות ושבתות, אין להם אלא מדברי סופרים. ואף על פי כן, דבר שחייבים על זדונו כרת ספקו אסור מן התורה, שהרי העושה אותו חייב אשם תלוי. So what the Rambam says, he says, I know, and still I think what I think. He didn't explain.
He says Asham Talui is only in the case of karet, not in other berot. That's what the Rambam says.
Everybody says that. No, that's from board to board. That everybody agrees on that point.
So then this is a very, very severe, right, avera, karet, something that you do in karet, right? So it's not every safek. It's not every safek. It's only safek in something that is onesh karet. So that's
you're right, but still the Rambam says, אבל כל הספקות בין טומאות, בין מאכלות אסורות, בין בעריות ושבתות, אין להם אלא מדיני סופרים, ואף על פי כן, דברים שחייבים על זדונו כרת, ספקו אסור מן התורה. שהרי עושה אותו, חייב אשם תלוי. So what Ronit is saying is that maybe the Rambam is saying that karet is an exception. All the averot, there's fekos is asurim, but karet is an exception. There's one problem with that. Isur arayas is also kares sometimes. And he said here arayas, So he's very confusing. But what you said is a good option and a good solution. An easy solution is to come to say, the Rambam didn't really mean that correct, that you bring Hashem Talui is also Safek Midivresut. No, that's the right. The problem is that the Rambam doesn't say that. He said Arayot, and he also talks about Mamzer, and he says that we learn from Mamzer to the entire Torah, and it didn't say that very clearly. So, okay. Last year we finished where we thought the Rambam was great. This year we're finishing thinking the Rambam is a huge problem, and that's wonderful.
Except that the Rambam always tries to be lenient to people, I think, doesn't he? I don't know. I've never.
No. That's something about Chachamim. They're never always lenient. Also, Beit Hillel has humor.
In this case.
No. In this case.
Yes.
In
so
other cases,
I have to say that
No.
as much as I agreed with what I agreed with, I like the Rambam better because it doesn't require so much of a punishment.
No, you're right. No, this is a very good way to finish this.
Yeah.
You're right. We started loving the Rambam. We like the Rambam because we like the leniency and we like the room that he gave us to be human. But now we continue learning, and the Rashba has a very strong claim against the Rambam, and we have to find a way to save the Rambam from the Rashba's claim.
True.
Okay, so we'll continue this next week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today here on Zoom, on Drisha Live, and on Facebook. We'll continue next week with this class, and I hope to see you there. We do have our spring program is continuing this evening at 8 p.m. with a class about Nida. And this class is not going to be live on Facebook because of the nature of the class. So if you'd like to attend, we ask that you register to attend on Zoom. If you want more information about our other classes, we always have a lot going on. So you can go to www.drisha.org/classes. We have information there. And all the classes are always recorded, and recordings are available on Drisha Live. So you just go to www.drisha.org/live. And thank you so much again for being with us, Rabbanit Shimoni, and thanks everyone else. We hope to see you at more of our upcoming classes here at Drisha.